the market is, we're still waiting for the closing bell really officially, but let's get more insights on markets and growing their wealth. We're glad ATR Asset Management's Phillip Hagedorn can join us on our relaunch week, joining us here in the studio in Quezon City. Hi, Phil. Great to see you in person after so many years.
So nice to be back. Thank you for inviting me.
You know, I think the last time we saw each other in person, the market was where? 8,000?
Was
that
it?
long
we've
ago?
seen each other probably at every level.
So
from 5'8" to
all the way to,
to
okay.
where we are.
Before we get to the market conversation, I want to talk about the big picture, and this is news about you, about ATRAM, for example.
Thank you, yeah.
I mean, if you Google ATRAM, you remember the Union Bank buying 27.5% stake. Of you guys, and then Metro Bank's First Metro Investment selling its shares in First Metro Asset Management to ATRAM Group. I get a sense there's consolidation in your space. What is happening there? Is this a trend?
Well, I mean, I think if you ask the BSP, they'd like to see consolidation in both the banking sector and maybe even the asset management, because you know, it's a scale business, right? So really, it's better when you have scale and when you know, the players have that size. So you know, I think it's, for us, it's exciting. You know, I can't comment on the First Metro because that's really our partners that we're engaged. But we, you know, we're very excited about what we announced with regards to Union Bank and the merger. It's not a buyout, it's not a buy-in, it's a merger, and it's a partnership that we're looking to build.
How much business is Union Bank bringing to you guys?
Well, we'll see how that evolves and develops. That's what we want to see, and that's where we expect that you know, this partnership will be a strong, long, and fruitful one.
Strong, long, and fruitful. All right. What can you tell us about the markets? What's the sense you're getting from the markets, whether it's the capital markets, the private markets? Is there a lot of compounding wealth here?
Well, I think, you know, in the Philippines, our markets on the public side have been a bit tough, right? I mean, stock markets have, our markets, you know, we started off on a good note this year. It was you know, we started January with very low inflation, the first time an inflation print came out below 3%, and that kind of fueled things in the first quarter. And the big story for this year was interest rates, right? Interest rates dropping, interest rates being cut, and everybody was waiting for the Fed to make the first move, and they kind of
beat them to it.
They kind of head faked us in March and said, wait, and that's what made markets retrace our gains in the early part of the year. And then in June, suddenly the Fed said, all right, looks like it's back on. And we had this fantastic rally from June all the way to September, where the index was up 16% at one point this year, right? So it's been a wild ride. And then, you know, then we had the elections and the Trump trade that has just sort of put a cap on any market rallies, at least in Asia, right, where there's some concern. So we don't know what's going to happen moving forward with regards to that. What we do know and what we can control is what's going on in the Philippines, and that is a very positive outlook, I think, for next year.
Phil, you did post, if we may share, very interesting from yesterday, Throwback Tuesday. You say, I smile when I hear folks talk down the Philippine stock market, how it's too small, too illiquid, too whatever. Naysayers stay away because there are 7 Philippine stocks that have outperformed those they call the magnificent year-to-date 2024. And for proper disclosure, all of these 7 stocks that have outperformed are represented in your Philippine equity funds that you manage.
Funds, yeah.
All right, and these 7 stocks are?
Well, I mean, when you look at the Magnificent Seven, that's what's moved the U.S. and what's captured everybody's imagination. Now let's put first of all, these are not as big as those companies, but they are important Philippine companies that have performed extremely well in 2024. So our stock market is up, I don't know, 6% maybe year to date, 5 or 6%, depending on where we close today. But these stocks are of the 7, the weakest performer is BPI, which is up 30% this year. And BPI is among the top banks in the country. This is not a small cap speculative stock, right? The best performer has been DigiPlus, which is a gaming entertainment stock.
Also, last year's top performing stock.
Yeah, it's up 191%, I believe, somewhere around there this year. Versus, of course, the top performing stock of the Magnificent Seven, which is NVIDIA, 171. Right? So we've so I mean, again, what I want to point out is that there are fantastic opportunities in the Philippines. And you know, I talk about our market being small. Yes, it is small relative to other markets, but doesn't mean you should neglect it. And I think especially where we are today, where we have this fantastic opportunity, we're trading at 10 times forward multiple. Earnings are coming through stronger than they were before the pandemic for most companies. Inflation is back to a low level. And so I think the outlook is quite good. And I'm trying to point out that there's a fantastic opportunity for folks that have maybe stepped away from our market for the last few years because, you know, the volatility and the issues that we've had to deal with. No?
Not for the faint of heart. But Phil, let's just complete the 7 that are also represented in your equity funds. DigiPlus up
so
191%.
Converge would be the number 2. That's
101%.
That's 101%. Then you have ICTSI, which has been a fantastic performer for not just 1 year, but many years in a row. No?
Up 60%.
Up 60% year to date. I think the next would be Metrobank, again,
up 54.
a top 3 bank, up 54%.
Century Pacific.
Century Pacific, that stock is represented in 5 different strategies that we manage.
Why do you like this stock so much?
Including sustainability, including alpha, which is the small mid-cap stocks, including, I mean, so, you know, it's one of these companies that really has not only a good citizen, not only a good corporate citizen, but really doing well. So you have these stories, right? And I think this is where, let's just not forget our home court advantage, right, here.
And rounding up the top 7 would be Manila Water, up 39%.
Yeah, up 39%. So these are not speculative stocks. They are not, you know, illiquid, small. They're very investable, and I hope more people take notice.
And you end your post by saying, clean sweep, support your own. Sometimes the best ideas are right under your nose since 1927. What's 1927?
That's when the Manila Stock Exchange was first opened.
Many years ago. All right. So, so you think about how the stock market is doing today. You talk about how forward multiples, price to earnings, are going to improve. I wonder, you know, they say that sometimes the price doesn't catch up quite as fast as the value. Do you think the price of the stocks now are doing okay catching up with the value? Because whenever you buy a stock, really what you're buying is the underlying business.
Absolutely.
Hopefully that's the mentality.
100%. I mean, I think that's the key. That if there was an issue about earnings, then I would be worried. But that's not the case. The case is today, people used to value our stocks a lot higher than they do today from an earnings standpoint, in terms of a multiple. Our average before the pandemic, I think the 10-year average prior to the pandemic was probably somewhere around 20 times. Since the pandemic, our average has been 12, right? So what we think is there'll be an uptick in the outlook for the Philippines, which will allow for that PE multiple upgrade, right? The earnings are what they are, and they are moving along as we expect. In my 30-plus years in the market, it's, you know, the best time is when you have the market needing to catch up to the fundamentals, rather than the fundamentals having to catch up to the market.
Is that where we at?
We're where the market needs to catch up to the fundamentals, which is a lot, you know, a lot more attractive in terms of investment opportunity, right?
All right. You mentioned some of the funds that you have. How many funds does ATRAM have now?
Wow, we're 40 plus.
40 plus funds. And are you mostly beating?
Well, with 40 funds, there'll always be some beatings.
Majority.
You know,
Would you say
of course,
majority?
there's going to be, I mean, our best performing funds, on the Philippine side, it's the Alpha Opportunity Fund, which has been the best performing fund, recently awarded 10-year, 5-year, 3-year returns.
All
so That's a Philippine equity fund investing in small mid-caps.
Small mid-caps.
Our best performing global fund is a global tech fund, which is up, I don't know, 40 plus. I can't keep track anymore. It's been so strong this year.
Amazing, amazing stuff. And the weak spots, where do you see the weakness? I'm curious.
You know, this year's been a good year because returns at least have been positive, right? Across almost every asset class, unlike last year. So, you know, I can't say there's been any real disappointment in terms of, you know, any of our funds. There's been new opportunities, so alternative investments is something new. We launched the first corporate debt vehicle, which is a Philippine mutual fund dedicated to lending to companies, small, medium-sized companies, right? And that's a new thing, and that's, you know, giving a little bit of a pickup in terms of interest rate, you know, that you earn. So new products certainly are starting
For
to come
next
out,
year.
and we'll expect more for next year for sure.
All right. And for those who are watching, ATRAM, of course, is one of the biggest in the country. What's your AUM as we speak?
As we speak, we're probably just under 400 billion pesos in AUM. We're a 15-year-old company, so we're celebrating our 15th year this year, so we're not
Happy
that old.
15.
We started 15 years ago with 1 billion pesos, so it's a story about how people can grow if you have a vision and see opportunity out there.
At 400 billion AUM, that makes you number 4?
We're fourth in the industry.
A solid fourth.
The top, behind the top 3
Big
banks. We're the only independent non-bank, and even with our new partnership, we remain to be an independent firm. So we're really, you know, we're looking forward
What's the
to
target? 15 years ago, you started with $1 billion.
man.
You're now at 400 billion.
Well, we want to grow. We want to be there
What's
as
a reasonable-
a relevant player, right? Scale is what's needed.
How much are you
The
going to
relevant
scale?
players are above $1 trillion, so, you know, hopefully that's where we are.
Above $1 trillion. How many more years before we get there?
Mimi, don't put me on the spot today.
All right, then we're going to get you on the record there. So you're going to be launching new products as well. Philippine equity markets for next year. What's your call? I mean, this year, everybody's saying this is probably the year we break the 4-year losing streak for the index, for the PSEI. 6450 is the number we have to beat.
Yeah, I think
The closing for
that'll
last
happen.
year. So you think this year is going to be positive
Well,
at
our
least?
view this year was we would 7,400 was our year-end target, right? And
Have
we
you
hit-
had to revise it down?
No. Well, we already hit 7,600.
But we're back to 60.
I'm just saying, we got there first, right? So
All right.
to me, you know, it's the direction.
All right.
Obviously, this Trump trade has caused some turmoil, but it's clear where the fundamental value we feel is.
Okay.
And I think that, you know, we should see the market back at that 7,000 level early in the first quarter of next year. I don't see any reason why not. Why? Nothing has changed since September, right? Since October. There's a new president in the U.S. We'll see what policies come up, but
And how the dollar moves.
But I think we're already seeing a bit of the strength in the peso. It's already 58.30 today, if I'm not mistaken, and so, you know, the fear of it going above 60 is kind of fading away. Let's see what the U.S. president does. And nobody can second guess it. We'll have to wait to see what happens. But you know, I think the Philippines is well positioned. We're an economy that relies really on domestic consumption, our OFW remittances, strong dollar. Yeah, it hurts our exports, but it helps.
It's great for,
you know. So we have a pretty decent
balances
balance
out.
there. So. As long as inflation comes off and interest rates can come down, banks can start to lend more, people can borrow again for mortgages, get back to buying homes.
It would be nice to be at 9,000 again, right, Phil? I
We
mean,
will be
everybody's
there.
saying, you know, it's like for the last 10 years, we didn't move. It's like we went up and we're back to where we started 10 years ago. Not even
I mean, except that there are periods there you could have made money, and if
A
you're,
lot of money.
You know, so it's.
And does it feel like Filipino investors right now are gung-ho about putting money in this market, in this kind of environment to make
No, I
money?
mean, that's exactly why my post yesterday, right? Because I'm not seeing it. You know, we want to see, you know, we need to see more activity, right? More
IPOs.
activity.
Do you think IPOs could?
Well, they're always helpful. They're always helpful, and we are hearing of a few potentially huge ones for next year, right? If our good friends in Globe decide to go with Mint, then, you know, maybe millions of Filipinos will subscribe to that IPO, and
blockbuster
and
IPO.
it would be a fantastic way to get the markets going again, you know.
And what excites you most about 2025?
Well, I think that it's my theme has always been it's kind of feeling like things are moving back to normal, right? Compared to the last 5 years of really difficult markets, difficult economy, lots of things to, you know, we felt that this year, okay, inflation is being under control. You know, it looks like interest rates will also come under control, growth can come back. Imports are starting to, you know, corporates are starting to think about growing rather than just borrowing to keep the businesses, you know, operating every day. And that's what we want to see. And if that happens, then I think we're in the beginning of another possibly 10-year bull market that we saw in, you know, 2004 that went for 20 years practically.
You're calling it, Bill.
I'm calling it.
You're calling
It's
it
the low.
bull market. All right. On that note, Phil, you know, we are already at 3:37. We actually have the closing numbers already. I think we can flash the closing numbers on screen. Let's take a look at the board. There you go. The index closing down by just about 0.06%, less than a tenth. The broader all shares actually did pretty well. Well, they're flat, really, essentially.
Decent
But
volume, though, that's
look
okay.
at that. The volume, 7.9. What does that tell us, Phil?
Somebody's buying, but somebody's selling.
That's the trick. Okay. On that note, Phil, thank you so much. Final question before we let you go. What is the advice for the Filipino investor?
Well, I think the Filipino
And you
investor...
have to mean it.
No, I mean it. And what I'm thinking now is that you have to have balance in your investments, right? So in the past, for a regular Filipino investor to have global investments was very difficult. Today, it's not. So whether you're going to get ATRAM products or other bank products that offer global investing as a complement to your total package, do so. But don't forget the Philippines. Don't get enamored by the S&P because of the big names, where right under your nose there's opportunity as well. And I think that's a risk, that if you have all of these global investments, you tend to just look at those markets because they've been doing so well and putting most of the money there. But there's an opportunity here. Don't let it slip by.
All right. On that note, Phil, thank you so much for joining us. It's always a pleasure picking your brains. It's like going through history books and looking to the future. Thank you so much, Phil. And we'll see you soon, hopefully back in the studio when you have time.
Anytime.
All right.
Cheers.